Daniel Morrison had worked at the Riverside Diner for 11 years. He knew every crack in the vinyl booths and every stain on the checkerboard floor. He knew which customers wanted their coffee before they sat down, and which ones needed a few minutes of silence before ordering. But on that cold Tuesday morning in March, he saw something that would change everything he thought he knew about paying attention. The woman who walked through the door at 6:15 looked like she was made of glass. Not fragile exactly, but transparent somehow, like you could see right through to all the hurt she was carrying. She wore a gray coat that had seen better winters, and her hair hung limply around a face that might have been pretty if it wasn't so hollow. Daniel watched her slide into the corner booth by the window, the one that looked out over the parking lot and the highway beyond. She didn't look at the menu. She didn't look at anything, really. Just stared at her hands folded on the table like they belonged to someone else. Daniel grabbed a coffee pot and walked over, his shoes squeaking on the old linoleum. "Good morning," he said. "Coffee?" She nodded without looking up. Daniel poured and waited, but she didn't say anything else. He'd seen plenty of quiet customers before, plenty of people who came to the diner to be alone in public. But something about this woman made his chest feel tight. "I'll give you a minute with the menu," he said. "I don't need a minute." Her voice was flat as the pavement outside. "Just the pancakes and orange juice." Daniel wrote it down and headed back to the kitchen. Through the serving window, he could see her still sitting there, motionless, staring at nothing. His coworker Rita came up beside him with a tray of eggs. "Who's the ghost in booth 7? "Don't know," Daniel said. "But something's not right," Rita shrugged. "Half the people who come in here at dawn have something not right. That's why they're here." She wasn't wrong. The Riverside Diner had always been a haven for the lost and the lonely, the night shift workers and the insomniacs, the people trying to outrun whatever was chasing them through the dark hours. Daniel had always liked that about the place. It felt honest. He made the pancakes himself, poured the orange juice, and brought everything out on a brown tray. The woman thanked him so quietly he almost didn't hear it. Then she picked up her fork and just held it there above the plate, like she'd forgotten what it was for. Daniel went back behind the counter, but he couldn't stop watching her. She cut a small piece of pancake but didn't eat it. She lifted her juice glass halfway to her mouth, then set it back down. The minutes crawled by and the food grew cold, and she barely moved at all. When the morning rush started at 7, Daniel got swept up in the chaos of orders and refills and scrambled eggs. But every time he glanced at booth 7, she was still there, still sitting, still not eating. At 7:45, she finally stood up and walked to the register where Daniel was waiting. "How was everything?" "Fine," she whispered. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a $20 bill. She set it on the counter, then pulled out a pen and the receipt he'd left on her table. Daniel watched as she wrote something on the back of it. Her handwriting was shaky but deliberate. Then she pushed both the money and the receipt toward him. "Keep the change," she said. "Thank you," Daniel replied automatically. But his eyes had already found the words on the receipt, and his heart stopped beating for what felt like a full minute. "This is my last day alive." The bell above the door chimed as she walked out. Daniel stood frozen behind the register with the receipt in his hand, and a scream building in his throat that couldn't find its way out. Then his body remembered how to move and he was running. He shoved through the door into the cold morning air and saw her walking across the parking lot toward an old blue sedan. "Wait," he called out. "Please wait." She stopped but didn't turn around. Daniel ran up beside her and suddenly had no idea what to say. His breath made clouds in the frigid air and his heart was pounding so hard, he thought it might crack his ribs. "I saw what you wrote," he said. She looked at him then, and her eyes were the saddest things he'd ever seen. "You weren't supposed to see it yet. I was going to be gone, but I did see it." Daniel's voice was shaking. "And I can't let you leave. You don't even know me. I don't have to know you to know that this isn't the answer." She laughed, but there was no humor in it, just a sound like breaking glass. "You don't know anything about my life, about what I've been through, what I've lost." "You're right," Daniel said. "I don't know, but I'm asking you to tell me. Please just come back inside. Have some hot coffee. Talk to me. Why? Why do you care?" "Because I've been where you are." The words came out before he could stop them, and they hung in the cold air between them like a confession. The woman stared at him and something shifted in her face. 8 years ago, Daniel continued, I stood on a bridge downtown at 3 in the morning and I was ready to jump. I'd lost my wife to cancer. I'd lost my house. I'd lost everything that made me feel like a person. And I was so tired of hurting. What stopped you? A stranger. Some kid walking home from a late shift saw me there and stopped. He didn't give me some big speech. He just stood there with me and said he wasn't leaving until I came down. So I did. And I woke up the next morning and the pain was still there, but so was I. And that mattered. Tears were running down the woman's face now. My daughter died 6 months ago. She was only 9. It was a car accident, and it was so fast and I never got to say goodbye. My husband left me 3 months later. Said he couldn't look at me without seeing her. I lost my job last week. I have nothing left. Nothing. Daniel felt his own tears coming. What's your name? Beth, I'm Daniel. And I'm asking you to give me one day. Just one. Let me show you that there are still people in this world who care. Who want you here? Then tomorrow you can make whatever choice you need to make. But give me today. She stood there in the parking lot for a long time. Then she nodded. They went back inside and Daniel sat down across from her in booth 7. He brought fresh pancakes and fresh coffee and he listened. Beth talked for 3 hours. She told him about her daughter Emma, who loved butterflies and pizza and singing off-key. She told him about the moment the police knocked on her door. She told him about the crushing weight of waking up every morning in a house that echoed with absence. Daniel listened to all of it. He didn't try to fix anything or make it better. He just listened like her pain mattered because it did. Other customers came and went. Rita covered most of Daniel's tables without complaint. The owner Tommy came out from the back and Daniel expected to be yelled at, but Tommy just looked at Beth and quietly nodded, then went back to the kitchen. At 11, Daniel's shift ended, but he didn't leave. He asked Beth if she wanted to take a walk. They went to the park by the river where the early spring sun was trying its best to warm the world. They sat on a bench and watched ducks paddle across the water. I haven't been outside just to be outside in months, Beth said. It helps sometimes, being in the world instead of just in your head. That evening, Daniel took Beth to meet his friend Sarah, who ran a grief support group at the community center. Sarah had lost her son 5 years earlier, and she understood the specific hell Beth was living in. They talked until 9 at night, and when they were done, Sarah gave Beth a tight hug and a phone number, and a promise that she wasn't alone anymore. When Daniel finally drove Beth back to her car at the diner, she turned to him with red eyes and something that might have been the beginning of hope. I don't know if I can do this, she said. Live without her, you don't have to know yet. You just have to make it through today, and then tomorrow you try to make it through that day too, and somewhere along the way it gets a little easier. Not easy, but easier. Why did you do all this for me? 'Cause someone did it for me, and because you matter. Your daughter loved you, and that love doesn't disappear just because she's gone. You're still carrying it. Maybe someday you'll find a way to give it to someone else who needs it. Beth cried then, really cried, and Daniel let her. When she was done, she took a deep breath and looked at him. Thank you for seeing me, for not letting me disappear. I'll call you tomorrow, Daniel said. Just to check in, okay? She got in her car and drove away. Daniel watched her taillights fade into the darkness and sent up a prayer to whoever was listening that she'd make it through the night. She did, in the night after that, and the one after that. 3 months later, Beth came back to the Riverside Diner. She looked different. Still sad, still carrying that weight, but more solid somehow. More present. She told Daniel she'd been going to Sarah's group every week. She'd gotten a part-time job at a bookstore. She'd started volunteering at a children's hospital in Emma's name. I'm not okay, she said. I don't know if I'll ever be okay. But I'm here, and some days that feels like enough, Daniel smiled. That's all any of us can do. Beth reached across the table and took his hand. You saved my life. No, Daniel said. You saved your own life. I just gave you a reason to try. Sometimes that's the same thing. She was right. Sometimes paying attention to another person's pain. Sometimes refusing to let them vanish into their own darkness. Sometimes just being there is everything. The receipt with Beth's handwriting stayed taped to Daniel's bathroom mirror as a reminder. A reminder that every person who walks through the door carries a story we can't see. A reminder that a moment of kindness can echo forward into futures we'll never witness. A reminder that we're all just trying to make it through one more day, and sometimes the only thing that gets us there is knowing that someone cares. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to Kindify Stories. Share this video with someone who needs to remember that they matter, that they're not alone, and that tomorrow is always worth seeing. Your kindness could save a life. Thank you for being here and for choosing compassion.